What if some of the lunches that fueled America's factories, railroads, farms, and construction sites in the 1970s have almost completely vanished from memory today? Long before fast food dominated every corner, millions of working Americans relied on simple, filling meals that carried stories of hard work, family traditions, and regional food culture. Many of these dishes came from older generations and survived for decades before quietly disappearing from lunch tables across the country. Some were created during difficult economic times, while others reflected the unique traditions of immigrant communities and industrial towns. Today, most people have never seen these meals, let alone tasted them. Yet for countless workers, they were a familiar part of everyday life. As we count down these forgotten lunches, you will discover surprising recipes, unusual ingredients, and remarkable stories hidden in America's culinary past. Number 6 is almost unbelievable, and I believe you have probably never heard of numbers 11 and 7 before. Stay with us until the end because the top entries reveal just how creative and resourceful working-class Americans once were. If you enjoy uncovering forgotten American food history, subscribe now and join us for more lost recipes and remarkable stories from the past. 25. Dutch Lettuce Sandwich. At first glance, the Dutch lettuce sandwich sounds far too simple to deserve a place in history. Yet for many working families of Pennsylvania Dutch heritage, it was a familiar lunch that appeared on tables and in lunch pails for generations. The sandwich was typically made with fresh lettuce, thick slices of homemade bread, and a warm dressing created from bacon drippings, vinegar, and a touch of sugar. The hot dressing softened the lettuce and gave the meal a surprisingly rich flavor. During the 1970s, some older workers still carried versions of this sandwich to factories and workshops, especially in rural communities. It reflected a tradition of making satisfying meals from ingredients already available at home. As convenience foods became more common, recipes like this slowly disappeared. Today, the Dutch lettuce sandwich remains a reminder of a time when resourcefulness and family traditions shaped everyday lunches across America. 24. Dandelion Bacon Dinner Pail Salad. Long before specialty greens filled grocery stores, many working Americans gathered wild dandelion leaves for the dinner table. The dandelion bacon dinner pail salad was especially common in rural communities where nothing useful was wasted. Fresh dandelion greens were mixed with crumbled bacon and topped with a warm dressing made from bacon fat and vinegar. The result was a hearty salad that delivered flavor and nutrition at very little cost. Workers often packed it alongside bread or leftover potatoes for a filling midday meal. By the 1970s, older generations still remembered gathering dandelions from fields and yards each spring. The practice connected families to traditions that stretched back decades. As packaged foods became easier to obtain, fewer people prepared meals like this. Today, this forgotten salad stands as a symbol of practical cooking and the ability to turn humble ingredients into something memorable. 23. Tomato Gravy and Biscuit Lunch. For countless Southern workers, tomato gravy and biscuits provided comfort, warmth, and energy during a long workday. The dish was built around a simple gravy made from tomatoes, flour, and drippings, served over freshly baked biscuits. Although inexpensive, it delivered a rich flavor that made it a favorite in many households. Families often prepared it when money was tight or when pantry ingredients were running low. During the 1970s, it could still be found in lunchrooms, homes, and small-town diners across parts of the South. Workers appreciated that it was filling without requiring costly ingredients. The meal also reflected generations of Southern cooking traditions passed down through families. As eating habits changed and fast food expanded, tomato gravy slowly disappeared from everyday lunches. Yet for those who grew up with it, the dish remains a powerful reminder of resilience, community, and home-cooked comfort. 22. Mock Oyster Sandwich. The mock oyster sandwich carried a surprising secret. It often contained no oysters at all. Instead, many versions used salsify, a root vegetable known as the oyster plant because its flavor resembled seafood when cooked. During earlier decades, families embraced the recipe as an affordable alternative to expensive shellfish. By the 1970s, the sandwich was already becoming a rarity, surviving mostly among older cooks who remembered traditional recipes. The filling was usually seasoned and served between slices of bread, creating a unique lunch that puzzled younger generations. For workers seeking a satisfying meal without spending much money, it offered a practical solution. The sandwich also reflected a broader tradition of creating imitation dishes during times when certain ingredients were difficult to afford. Today, few Americans have ever heard of it, making the mock oyster sandwich one of the most unusual forgotten lunches in this countdown. 21. Fried cornmeal mush squares. Fried cornmeal mush squares began as a simple way to stretch ingredients while creating a meal that could keep workers full for hours. Cornmeal was cooked into a thick porridge, allowed to cool until firm, then sliced into squares and fried until golden brown. The crispy exterior and soft center made it surprisingly satisfying. In many working-class households, leftovers from breakfast were packed for lunch and eaten cold or reheated later. The dish was especially common in parts of the Midwest and among families with deep agricultural roots. Even during the 1970s, older workers still remembered carrying fried mush in lunch pails. Its popularity came from affordability and convenience rather than luxury. As modern convenience foods replaced traditional home cooking, recipes like this faded away. Today, fried cornmeal mush squares offer a glimpse into a practical era of American food history. 20. Pennsylvania Slaw Burger. The Pennsylvania Slaw Burger combined two working-class favorites into one memorable meal. A seasoned hamburger was topped with fresh cabbage slaw, creating a balance of savory and crisp textures. The sandwich became popular in industrial towns where workers needed filling lunches that could be prepared quickly and eaten easily. Local diners and small restaurants often served their own versions, making it a regional favorite. During the 1970s, it remained a familiar sight in parts of Pennsylvania, especially among families connected to factory and steel mill communities. The slaw added freshness while helping stretch ingredients economically. Over time, national fast food chains pushed many regional specialties into the background. As a result, the Pennsylvania Slaw Burger gradually disappeared from mainstream menus. Today, it survives mostly through local traditions and family memories, representing the unique food culture of America's working-class communities. 19. Bean Whole Bean Lunch. The bean whole bean lunch traces its roots to outdoor cooking traditions that date back generations. Large pots of beans were placed in underground pits lined with hot stones and left to cook slowly for many hours. The process created tender, flavorful beans that could feed entire groups of workers. In some communities, leftovers became a common lunch packed for the next day. The meal was inexpensive, nutritious, and capable of sustaining people through demanding physical labor. Even in the 1970s, older Americans still remembered community beanhole gatherings and family recipes passed down through generations. The dish reflected a culture of cooperation and shared meals that was common in many rural areas. As lifestyles changed and cooking methods modernized, beanhole cooking became far less common. Today, the bean whole bean lunch remains a fascinating reminder of America's resourceful food traditions. 18. Cabbage Roll Skillet Supper. Cabbage rolls were already popular across many immigrant communities, but the skillet version became especially practical for busy working families. Instead of rolling each portion individually, cooks combined the same ingredients in a single pan. Cabbage, meat, rice, and tomato sauce simmered together into a hearty meal that could easily provide lunch leftovers. The dish offered comfort, nutrition, and affordability in one serving. During the 1970s, many workers carried portions to factories, warehouses, and offices because it traveled well and remained filling throughout the day. The recipe reflected Eastern European influences that became part of American home cooking. As convenience foods gained popularity, many traditional skillet meals gradually disappeared from lunch routines. Today, the cabbage roll skillet supper serves as a reminder of how immigrant food traditions helped shape the meals that fueled generations of American workers. 17. Hot milk toast lunch bowl. Few lunches sound stranger to modern ears than hot milk toast. Yet for generations, this simple dish provided comfort and nourishment during difficult times. Thick slices of bread were placed in a bowl and covered with hot milk, often seasoned lightly with butter, sugar, or salt depending on regional preferences. The meal was inexpensive and easy to prepare, making it popular among working families and older Americans. During the 1970s, it still appeared in some households where traditional recipes remained part of daily life. Workers appreciated its warmth during cold weather, while families valued its affordability. The dish traced its origins to earlier periods when stretching household resources was essential. As eating habits evolved, hot milk toast gradually disappeared from lunch tables. Today, it stands as one of the most overlooked examples of how simple foods once played an important role in everyday American life. 16. Creamed peas on toast. Creamed peas on toast was once a dependable lunch found in homes, cafeterias, and community gatherings across America. The recipe combined peas with a creamy sauce that was spooned generously over slices of toasted bread. Although simple, it provided a satisfying balance of flavor and texture. For working families, it was an economical way to create a filling meal using ingredients commonly found in the pantry. During the 1970s, many people still remembered it as a regular lunch or supper option. The dish reflected an era when practical cooking mattered more than presentation. It also demonstrated how cooks transformed basic ingredients into meals that could feed an entire family. As tastes changed and processed convenience foods became increasingly popular, creamed peas on toast faded from the spotlight. Today, it survives mainly through vintage cookbooks and memories of a different generation. 15. Johnny Marzetti lunch casserole. Johnny Marzetti was one of those dishes that seemed to appear everywhere, from church suppers to family kitchens and workplace potlucks. The casserole combined ground beef, pasta, tomato sauce, and cheese into a hearty meal that could feed a crowd without straining the family budget. Its origins are often linked to an Ohio restaurant in the early 20th century, but by the 1970s it had become a working-class favorite across much of America. Many families prepared a large pan on Sunday and packed leftovers for lunch throughout the week. Workers appreciated that it was filling, flavorful, and easy to transport. The casserole reflected an era when practical meals were designed to stretch ingredients while still satisfying hungry families. As eating habits shifted toward faster and more individualized meals, dishes like Johnny Marzetti became less common. Today, it remains a nostalgic reminder of community gatherings, family dinners, and hardworking American households. 14. Wilted lettuce and bacon plate. Before packaged salads became common, many families relied on simple recipes made from ingredients already growing in the garden. Wilted lettuce and bacon was one such meal. Fresh lettuce was topped with hot bacon drippings, crumbled bacon, and a tangy dressing that softened the leaves while adding rich flavor. The result was a surprisingly satisfying plate that often served as a light lunch alongside bread or leftover vegetables. During the 1970s, older generations still prepared the dish from recipes handed down through families. It was especially popular in rural communities where fresh produce was readily available. The meal reflected a time when cooks used every ingredient carefully and wasted very little. Although simple in appearance, it carried deep connections to home gardens and seasonal cooking traditions. Today, wilted lettuce and bacon survives mainly through vintage cookbooks and family memories, preserving a small piece of America's culinary heritage. 13. Ham pot pie, Pennsylvania Dutch style. Unlike the baked pies many people imagine today, Pennsylvania Dutch ham pot pie was a hearty one-pot meal. Chunks of ham simmered in broth alongside thick homemade noodles and potatoes, creating a filling dish that could satisfy hungry workers after long hours of labor. The recipe was deeply rooted in Pennsylvania Dutch communities and remained popular well into the 1970s. Families often prepared large batches, making it easy to pack leftovers for lunch the next day. The dish reflected generations of practical cooking where simple ingredients were transformed into substantial meals. Workers valued its warmth, flavor, and ability to provide lasting energy. As regional food traditions gradually faded from mainstream culture, ham pot pie became less familiar outside the communities that created it. Today, it remains a treasured reminder of Pennsylvania's rich culinary history and working-class food traditions. 12. Corn Dodgers and sorghum. Corn Dodgers and sorghum were once a familiar combination across parts of the rural South. Corn dodgers were small cornmeal cakes shaped by hand and baked or fried until firm enough to carry on the go. Paired with sweet sorghum syrup, they provided a simple but satisfying lunch for farmers, laborers, and mill workers. The meal required few ingredients and could be prepared with items commonly found in many households. During the 1970s, older Americans still remembered eating corn dodgers as part of everyday life, especially in agricultural communities. The recipe reflected a tradition of self-reliance and local food production. Sorghum syrup offered sweetness at a time when many families produced their own ingredients rather than purchasing processed foods. As food habits changed and regional recipes declined, corn dodgers and sorghum slowly disappeared from lunch tables. Today, they stand as a reminder of America's rural food heritage and resourceful cooking traditions. 11. Sauerkraut sandwich. A sauerkraut sandwich may sound unusual today, but it was once a practical lunch in communities influenced by German and Eastern European traditions. Tangy sauerkraut was often paired with meat, cheese, or simple seasonings and served between slices of bread. The result was a flavorful meal that was inexpensive and easy to prepare. During the 1970s, older workers in some regions still packed these sandwiches for lunch because the ingredients were affordable and readily available. Sauerkraut also had the advantage of storing well, making it useful before modern food conveniences became widespread. The sandwich reflected generations of immigrant food traditions that became woven into American life. Over time, changing tastes pushed many regional recipes aside, and the sauerkraut sandwich gradually faded from everyday menus. Today, it remains one of the more surprising examples of the lunches that once fueled hardworking Americans. 10. Potato candy and coffee break lunch. Potato candy was born from creativity during times when families needed to stretch every ingredient. Mashed potatoes were mixed with sugar to form a sweet dough, then rolled with a filling such as peanut butter before being sliced into pieces. While often considered a treat, some workers paired it with coffee and simple side items during lunch breaks. By the 1970s, the recipe still survived in certain households that valued older traditions. The candy demonstrated how resourceful cooks could transform ordinary pantry staples into something memorable. It also reflected an era when homemade foods played a larger role in daily life. As commercially produced snacks became more common, recipes like potato candy slowly disappeared from lunchrooms and break tables. Today, it remains a fascinating example of American ingenuity and the determination to create comfort from the simplest ingredients. 9. Cincinnati Mock Turtle Soup Lunch. Few regional dishes are as distinctive as Cincinnati Mock Turtle Soup. Despite its name, the soup contained no turtle. Instead, it traditionally used beef and a blend of seasonings to recreate flavors associated with genuine turtle soup. The dish became a local favorite and remained popular in parts of Ohio for generations. During the 1970s, workers often enjoyed bowls of this rich soup for lunch, particularly during colder months. Its hearty nature made it well suited for people performing physically demanding jobs. The recipe reflected the influence of 19th-century cooking traditions that survived long after many similar dishes had disappeared. Families and local restaurants helped preserve its popularity, passing recipes from one generation to the next. Although still remembered in certain areas, mock turtle soup is far less common today. It remains an intriguing reminder of America's regional food culture and the unique lunches once enjoyed by working-class communities. 8. Liver dumpling soup bowl. Liver dumpling soup was a practical meal that made full use of available ingredients. Small dumplings containing finely prepared liver were simmered in a flavorful broth, creating a filling lunch that provided valuable nutrition. The dish was especially common in communities influenced by Central European cooking traditions. During the 1970s, some families still prepared it from recipes handed down through generations. Workers appreciated its ability to satisfy hunger without requiring expensive ingredients. The soup reflected a period when thrift and resourcefulness were central parts of home cooking. As eating habits evolved, dishes using organ meats became less popular, and liver dumpling soup gradually faded from everyday life. Today, it survives mainly through family traditions and vintage recipe collections. 7. Scotch woodcock toast. Despite its unusual name, Scotch woodcock contained no game bird. The dish typically featured creamy scrambled eggs blended with anchovies and served on hot toast. Rich in flavor and surprisingly filling, it became a popular light meal in earlier decades. By the 1970s, however, it was already becoming a rarity. Some older Americans still remembered it as a quick lunch or supper that could be prepared with simple pantry ingredients. The combination of eggs and anchovies provided both protein and a distinctive savory taste. The recipe reflected a period when practical meals often relied on preserved foods that stored well. As culinary trends changed, Scotch woodcock slowly disappeared from mainstream American kitchens. Today, many people have never heard of it, making it one of the most forgotten lunches on this countdown. 6. Green tomato pie lunch slice. Green tomato pie is one of those forgotten dishes that surprises almost everyone who hears about it today. Made from unripe tomatoes, sugar, spices, and a flaky crust, it was often compared to apple pie because of its similar texture and flavor. During the 1970s, some rural families still packed slices for lunch or enjoyed them alongside simple meals. The recipe reflected a time when cooks found creative ways to use every available ingredient rather than letting food go to waste. Green tomatoes that might otherwise be discarded became the foundation of a satisfying dish. As modern food habits changed, green tomato pie slowly disappeared from everyday life. Today, it remains a fascinating reminder of American ingenuity and the resourceful cooking traditions that helped working families make the most of what they had. 5. Boileau stewed sausage lunch plate. Boileau stewed sausage lunch plates were inspired by food traditions found in Pennsylvania coal regions and immigrant communities. Sausage was slowly cooked until tender and flavorful, often accompanied by potatoes, cabbage, or bread. The meal was hearty, affordable, and ideal for workers facing long days in mines, factories, and industrial towns. During the 1970s, older families still prepared versions of this dish from recipes passed down through generations. Its popularity came from its ability to feed many people without requiring expensive ingredients. The slow cooking process created rich flavors while making tougher cuts of meat easier to enjoy. As regional traditions gradually faded and convenience foods became more common, meals like this became increasingly rare. Today, the Boileau stewed sausage lunch plate stands as a reminder of America's hardworking communities and their enduring culinary heritage. 4. Depression-era onion sandwich. The Depression-era onion sandwich tells a powerful story about survival and determination. During difficult economic times, many families relied on whatever ingredients they could afford. Thick slices of onion were placed between buttered bread, creating a meal that was simple but filling enough to ease hunger. While it may sound unusual today, the sandwich represented the reality faced by countless Americans who had limited resources. Some older workers still remembered eating variations of it well into the 1970s. The recipe reflected a culture of resilience where people learned to make the most of very little. As prosperity increased and food choices expanded, the onion sandwich faded from lunch tables across the country. Today, it serves as a reminder of the hardships earlier generations endured and the remarkable resourcefulness that helped many families persevere through challenging times. 3. Amish wedding steak sandwich. Despite its name, Amish wedding steak was not always made from a traditional steak cut. Instead, it often featured seasoned ground beef formed into patties and served with rich gravy. Leftovers were commonly placed on bread to create a hearty sandwich that workers could take for lunch. The dish became closely associated with Pennsylvania Dutch and Amish food traditions, where practicality and flavor went hand in hand. During the 1970s, many families still prepared it for gatherings and everyday meals. Workers appreciated its filling nature and comforting taste. The recipe reflected generations of community-centered cooking and careful use of ingredients. Today, Amish wedding steak sandwiches are rarely seen outside the regions where they originated, making them a fascinating piece of America's forgotten food history. 2. Corn Cobb Jelly Bread lunch. Corn cob jelly sounds almost impossible, yet it was once a real homemade spread found in parts of rural America. Instead of throwing away stripped corn cobs, families simmered them to extract flavor before transforming the liquid into jelly. Spread onto fresh bread, it created a surprisingly enjoyable lunch or snack. During the 1970s, a few households still remembered making corn cob jelly from recipes passed down through earlier generations. The practice reflected a period when wasting food was simply not an option. Every usable ingredient had value, and creative cooks found ways to stretch resources further. As grocery stores expanded and processed products became more available, unusual homemade preserves like this gradually disappeared. Today, corn cob jelly bread stands as one of the most remarkable examples of American resourcefulness and the forgotten recipes that once helped families get through challenging times. 1. Railroaders Tomato and Cracker Bowl. At the top of our countdown is a meal that perfectly captures the spirit of working-class America. Railroaders Tomato and Cracker Bowl combines stewed tomatoes with crackers to create a simple, filling lunch that could be prepared almost anywhere. Railroad workers valued meals that were inexpensive, portable, and satisfying enough to sustain them through long shifts. This dish checked every box. During the 1970s, some older Americans still remembered eating versions of it at home or on the job. The recipe reflected a time when practicality mattered more than appearance and when simple ingredients could provide real comfort. Although it has largely vanished from modern lunch culture, the Railroaders Tomato and Cracker Bowl remains a powerful symbol of the hardworking people who helped build and connect America. From forgotten lunch pails to recipes passed down through generations, these meals reveal a side of American history that many people never knew existed. Each dish tells a story of hard work, resourcefulness, family traditions, and communities that found comfort in simple food. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you for spending your time with us and helping keep these lost food memories alive. Let us know in the comments which forgotten lunch surprised you the most. And if you love uncovering America's hidden culinary past, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and join us for more lost recipes and remarkable stories from history.